topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hello, and welcome to It's Your Voice, this show that hosts enriching conversations in diversity. My name is Bahia Yaksan. I am your host, and I am a core alignment coach and a diversity educator. I coach organizations and individuals in practices that build habits of stepping out of patterns that don't serve us to patterns that do serve us, and lead trainings that help us recognize our biases and how to create new patterns that are far more inclusive. If you're interested in looking at anything I offer as a coach or an educator, you can go to my website, which is found at knowwhatyouwantcoaching.wordpress.com. And it is my pleasure to welcome two guests tonight who are doing what I consider very powerful, amazing work that has deep meaning. And the title of this show is Love Your Neighbor, a Welcoming Place to Sleep. My guests are Andrew Waterhouse and Kary Shinder. Andrew has volunteered with groups in Davis, California to help support the homeless for about 15 years. He helped plan the safe parking effort, which they will describe well for us tonight, and is part of the management team. He also helps provide neighbor aid with St Vincent de Paul in Davis. And Kary Shinder, moved to Davis about 17 years ago from Salinas in Monterey County. And her commitment is to marginalize people, whether it's due to language barriers or reduced financial resources or disabilities. And her teaching and workshop leadership experience has helped to learn as much from students as she has been able to share. Andrew and Kary, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you for hosting us. It's great.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Well, I was so impressed that when I saw, and I can't even remember where it was, the Heart of Davis safe parking, safe sleeping program. And I was like, I need to find out who's behind that and ask them to tell us. So if you want to start by giving us maybe background and context, that would be wonderful.
Go ahead.
Well, I think one of the things I think many people don't realize is that everyone knows there's a lot of homelessness today, and it's very unfortunate. And we're not going to get into the causes of that. It would take several other programs. But, basically for many people, the rents are high, and there's very few low-income rental units in Davis. But it turns out that many people who don't have a home actually do have a car. And they actually live in the car and try to find a place to park it during the night to sleep. And that's problematic because many places don't allow you to park in their parking lot overnight. And if you park in front of somebody's home, often they get concerned. They don't know who that is and why they're there, and they call the local authorities. And so if you're living in your car overnight in just some place in Davis or elsewhere, often you get disturbed. Somebody comes by and says, "What are you doing here?" or "Why are you here?" and move along. And so it's difficult. And so you're not sleeping well, and you're worried about what's going to happen, who's going to bother you, disturb you, and so on. So we talked to some folks in town, and one of them suggested that, a safe parking program would be an asset for Davis, would be help to these folks. And it turns out there's quite a few across California. You want to say anything about it, Kary?
Sure. Well, it looks like an easy thing because you're providing some parking spaces in a lot that we choose to keep quiet because there have been some instances where it became kind of a free-for-all years ago before our program. So we have spent over a year looking at other programs. One notable one is in Santa Barbara, and they have many parking lots, including county parking lots and parking lots at malls, but they only have a few people at each one. And the reason for that is so that it does not attract, that the presence of the parkers does not, in the end, attract people who would think, oh, it's a party place, So it's quiet, it's under the radar. And it took us over a year to get everything worked out, which included getting parking permits from the city, spending time with the chief of police, and talking through a bunch of what ifs, and doing a lot of research about other programs and how they operate, what they do. That resulted in our developing a code of conduct for both the people who are volunteers greeting people, and I'll let Andy speak more about that, and also a code of conduct for the people who are entering into the parking agreement with us. So it looks super simple on the surface, but actually, in order to have this work well and to be an honest program and to be a program that truly serves people, there was a lot of work that went into the preparation before we began. Andy, do you want to share more about the actual structure and some of those kinds of things?
Sure. So the outline of the program is that Heart of Davis manages it, and we have a cooperator in a local church. So the folks in the church, we have an MOU with them that allows us to use their lot at night for 5 people. So that's the limit, and it's part of the permit from the city is there's a limit of 5. And and over time, several people from that church got very involved, and so now we have sort of a management team that runs things. And it turns out there are things that come up almost every day. We interview the folks who are interested and screen them. And then once they're allowed in, get a parking permit, and they come at 7 o'clock in the evening, and we have volunteers greet them, provide them with drinks and snacks for about an hour. And then everyone has to get in their car. They don't have to stay in the car, but they do have to be quiet. And then the volunteers leave. And we sometimes have somebody come by in the middle of the night to check on things. We've never really found a problem. And then at 7 the next morning, a new set of volunteers show up. They again provide some drinks and snacks. Coffee is very important. Hot coffee is very important during the winter. And then about 8 o'clock, everyone has to pack up and head off. Because the parkers are not allowed to stay there during the day. They have to be somewhere else. And then we start the next evening. So that's the basic outline of what actually happens.
Okay.
The other things that we have to worry about is we have to notify the neighbors and so on. And we didn't have any pushback from the neighbors. One of the neighbors said, "Gee, that's really nice you're doing that. How can I help?"
Wonderful.
I guess that's Davis. The other thing is, yes, we have a porta potty, which is a very essential facility for the folks spending the night there.
Mhm.
And so that has to be maintained and so on and so on. So that's a basic outline of how things work.
Well, do people volunteer to provide the the drinks and food? Like how are the supplies covered?
Oh, okay. So Heart of Davis has, we basically have a budget that helps manage this thing. So one of the expenses is the porta potty, which I already mentioned, and that turns out to be fairly expensive. We have a paid volunteer who interviews all the candidates, and he has experience working with marginalized folks, so he has some skills there. And Kary here actually gets in quite a bit involved in those interviews. Um, and then we have basically Heart of Davis purchases supplies for the drinks and snacks. And one of the volunteers does inventory every few days. And someone else goes to various stores in the area and brings those supplies to the location. So we have, lots of people involved in lots of different ways doing this and that and the other. So as Kary mentioned, there are more moving pieces here than you might think.
Yeah, it
I don't
sounds
know.
like it.
Maybe Kary would like to talk a little bit about the importance of the interview.
Sure.
I'd love to hear that.
Perdón, I have something rough going on in my throat, so I apologize, which is why I have a lozenge tucked in my cheek. Um, the interview process includes trying to not be invasive, but also getting the kind of information that may be helpful to us as we work to manage a program that is designed to reduce any kind of stress that the person might already be experiencing. So, as an example, if someone in talking with us says, I really don't like people and I just want to come and be by myself, that does not cut that person out of being included, but that does trigger for us the need to explore that a little further. And if I'm asked to call someone prior to that person even being seen by the one person who receives a stipend, my goal is to draw the person out as much as possible, but not in a manner that would put the person on the spot. So I typically will say something like, tell me as much about yourself as you really would like me to know if we are going to be neighbors. And that gives that person the license to share some things and not share some other things. When we look at the code of conduct, no alcohol and no drugs are an absolute in that. And so if someone says, I'm really working on this issue, we talk about that a little bit, but we really work hard on helping the person to feel comfortable. And actually, what we're all about, Bahia, is that each person is to be respected. That is the basis for what we are doing. There is an African proverb which I happen to love, and I worked in West Africa for quite a while as a linguist, and that is "Jineknafi manane koti," and what it literally means is when the eyes are crying, the nose is running or sitting down. Sitting down, it means running though. But the deeper meaning really gets at the heart of what we are doing, which is when one person is hurting, everyone is affected and everyone is really hurting. And so this is about the volunteers building understanding that they could have been in that position, understanding at a deeper level the humanity of each person and not being judgmental. And so, even in the interview process, from the very beginning, we are working to make that the baseline for what it is that we're doing, that kind of respect. And it is true that some people come to us who are dealing with substance abuse. It's also true that some people come to us who have had a crisis in their lives and now they're living in their cars, some kind of a financial crisis. Whatever it is, our job is to honor that person's innate agency. And as we work with the person through the interview process, through inviting the person to come, if that is the case, we work to set that person up with social services that will be helpful and sometimes with medical services. And it is also true, and this is a tough part of this issue. If someone has been kicked to the side by society or perceives that that is what has happened, that person may think, no, I'm not playing that game. They always promise and don't come through. So that's where our development as a program has some big challenges that we are facing. And we need to confront those challenges and deal with each person, even though we have a code of conduct and we have a code of conduct for the volunteers. Each person is treated in a unique manner within those parameters because every human deserves that. And that's what we're really working on doing. And then after a while, once the person has been in the program, and there have been people who have either chosen not to join once they learn that there is a time, you're not supposed to be hanging out until 10 a.m. You are supposed to be off site, and there are reasons for that. And so there have been people who said, nope, not for me. I don't want to have nope. That sounds too pushy to me. We have to honor that and say, well, should you decide that this might be a program that would work for you, please feel free to get in touch with us again. So we are honoring the innate agency of the individual, but also knowing through the experience of other programs that it's critical that we establish some parameters. And if we were not to do that, which is what happened a long while ago, not through IRWS, not through anything with which we're affiliated, it became kind of a free-for-all. So we know that free-for-alls don't work. And we're trying to create that balance. Do you have follow-up questions you want to ask about that? Anything that I, whatever.
Definitely. Wow. First, I want to say I really appreciate the compassion and respect for human dignity, which you clearly have and are demonstrating. And then one little technical thing, Kary, we're not seeing your beautiful face the entire time. I'm just for people who are viewing, if you could scoot it like you would. I was going to say closer to Andy.
No. Just sit up.
Like this?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Now I can see you. Just yes, because I want to see your lovely face.
Sorry.
Anyway, I just it's so intelligent. Your code of ethics, your program, the thinking that you've spent researching for a year, looking at other programs to prevent problems that they were having, and and of course, because it happens in life, then now you're seeing there still are some challenges. So one of my questions is, because the interviews are handled so delicately and skillfully and compassionately, do you train people who want to volunteer to do the greeting guests and interviewing guests and making that discernment, or is that just left into the hands of yourself and a couple of other experienced people?
I probably should try to answer this. We have a lot of volunteers, and what we do is we structure it so we try to have an experienced volunteer there, especially when there's a new volunteer starting.
Mm.
So there's the practicalities of how to get the things going and where the supplies are. But what I always emphasize with new volunteers is we're going to be here for about an hour. And I think what's very important is that we listen to our guests, right? And try to not be judgmental, but try to ask questions about how are they doing, what's going on in their lives. And I think it's important part of that is I feel when I do this, I want them to understand that to me, they're important, right? Often, if you're living in your car and whatever else is going on, you're probably not getting a lot of respect during the day. Some of our guests complain about the police trying to get them to move on even if they're parked in a public park, right? The police come along and say, "What are you doing here? Why are you here all afternoon?" And so on. And I think it's very important that when they come to our program, that they understand that we value who they are, and we're there to support them. And I guess the way Kary puts it, walk with them, try to help them find the resources they need. And I think I wanted to emphasize that we're an all volunteer team, and we're not trained as social workers and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And so we strongly encourage our parkers, our guests, to connect with an agency in the county that can help them with those issues. Because of the situation they're in, often these folks, well, first of all, they need help getting housing, right? So presumably they would like to find housing. And so there are social service agencies that they can work with who help them find housing. And that's one of our goals is to not have people stay with us permanently,
Right.
but to find a safe place to live aside from their car. And then often they have other needs as well. Some of them have medical needs and they haven't been able to address those. One of our guests, seemed to be getting more and more ill over the last few weeks, and we encouraged him to get medical help, and now he's getting the medical help, right? So
Yay.
we really it turns out it's not just parking.
Right.
Right? There's more
Right.
to it than that,
Right.
because we're getting to know these folks and find out what their issues are, and then try to help them find the resources to address those as best we can. But again, we're not a social service agency. We try to find options for our guests and encourage them more or less pretty strongly that they find a connection with an agency that can help them find the resources they need. So that's part of the deal right now.
I would like to go back to a word that Andy just used, which is listen.
Mm-hmm.
And we have had several experiences where volunteers felt that it was appropriate to provide lectures on well-being, or how you can manage your life better, or lo que sea, whatever. And so in those instances, the parkers themselves spoke to us and said, this person is really lecturing this other person.
Mm.
And even though we are not social workers, our whole basis for the work that we do is to be good listeners, not to be lecturers, and to not assume, which then puts the person immediately into a power struggle. And it's just a very uncomfortable and inappropriate setting. So there have been instances where, even though the volunteers have been instructed about listening and drawing people out, but not trying to be intrusive and all of that, there have been a few glitches in the system. And it is the parkers who have brought that to our attention so that we can talk with those few individuals and say, this is something that is not to happen, and you need to be thinking about it. And we've had very serious meetings with a couple of people. So my feeling is that that is part of our calling, is to be vigilant about the parkers being honored. And if that is being jeopardized, we do step in. So it's an intriguing process, and I think we've all learned a great deal from it. Some of our volunteers are medical people who are now in retirement. We have a person who is a fabulous social worker with whom we consult quite a bit, who manages a different kind of program, a low-cost housing program. And I'm personally very jealous of my time. And so I'm pretty discerning about where I place my energies. And I feel that what is happening with Heart Safe Parking merits all the time that I can give it, because it is making a difference in the lives of individuals. And there's that adage about thinking globally but acting locally. And I really believe that when people connect personally with others and see the ways in which they can be helpful but not pushy, the learning on the part of the volunteers is extended, and certainly they learn and grow as much as they are offering whatever kind of assistance or walking with the person. So we're not kicking back and saying, no, we have enough volunteers. We're watching what is happening and continuing to talk with people.
Well, you made it very clear why that's so critical, and because we are never in someone else's shoes, and if we inadvertently, even with the best intentions, think that we can actually help someone by telling them how to live well, but we haven't
It becomes
walked in their shoes.
condescending. It should never be condescending or paternalistic, ever.
And it puts
So
people in the defense.
we're looking for any hint that could be happening.
Well, that's fantastic. Quality, really seriously quality service and promoting active listening. Well, I'm wondering a couple things. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, some of the things Kary mentioned touched on how are things going, and I was going to comment on, what is the program successful? So I think the basic question is, do these folks feel safer parking overnight where in our program? And they all report that they do. Now I have to mention that it's not perfectly quiet. It's an open church, an open campus, they say. And occasionally some people wander by, and that's can be discouraging or disruptive. But it's very occasional. And one of the things we found out is the local ambulance drivers like to park in that lot when they're not on call.
Hmm.
So occasionally, this ambulance will drive in and park in the back. And it's a little bit disruptive because they do turn they're not their emergency lights, but their headlights are on. They drive in and drive out. But otherwise, really it has been much quieter than, it's quieter for them for sure. And anyway, with some minor disruptions, things have been quite successful in that regard. So we're happy with that. And then, the other issues are they getting help? Well, for instance, getting housing, and that has been happening.
Fantastic.
I think at least one of the Parkers definitely. We know he got an apartment. We know where that is. We helped them get some furniture. It's interesting. The volunteers all jumped up and said, "Oh, let's help this fellow. Get a bed, get chairs, a table, whatever he needs." Because if you're living in your car, you don't have much furniture.
Right.
So it was fun to see that happen. It was very heartening to see one of our folks find a place. And right now we've got a couple of our Parkers are talking about, they have applications in and things might happen. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. So that's, sort of the longer goal is to help them achieve whatever their, goals are. For instance, the Santa Barbara program, they they state that one of the reasons they run the program is to help their Parkers find a place to live. And they do, it is run by a social service agency. And they meet with everyone every month. And they said, every month several people find a place to live, and that's a great success. And we asked, well, do you have a deadline? Like if someone doesn't find a place, do you tell them they have to move on? I said, no, we don't have a deadline, but we do have one person who comes every month and is nominally searching for a place to live, but has been in the program since its inception, which is years and years. So they said the resumption is this person really loves living in their car, is not really interested in finding any other accommodation. But anyway, putting that aside, I think we do hope that our safe parking is a temporary solution for people who are in their cars, and that hopefully with a little more stability, they can get some better sleep. Maybe that'll give them a little more time during the day to seek some permanent housing. At least that's, so that is one of our goals, and we've just started. So, but we can point to one clear success, and we're hoping that one or two of our guests will find something in the next few months. So
that's
fingers
very
crossed.
encouraging, very encouraging. And I before I ask you other questions, there's a question from a couple questions from listeners or viewers. One from Benny. Does your program provide a reference if a Parker can get a place? I was going to ask that too. Do you have a number? Do you have a website? Is there a way for people to contact you? And then I'll ask the next question.
Let's see. Yes. I'll have to look. Wasn't expecting that
Go
question.
to Heart of Davis,
Yeah,
the website.
We have a website with
Okay.
safe parking description on there.
Okay.
I'll have to dig in and find that.
And a Google
Okay.
phone.
There's a
Heart of Davis.
yeah.
I do. Yeah. I looked it up.
I'll try to post the website there.
Okay, if you put it in the
in
chat
your-
box,
Yeah,
Rebel can
yeah.
make a banner that can stream in case people are seeing this, but some people might be listening,
Okay.
so we'll have to say it out loud as
All
well.
right.
But Heart of Davis website, safe parking.
Yeah.
And while you're
So
doing that, go ahead.
I'm looking at the question, are they asking, do we help them? Do we provide a reference if they want to apply for an apartment, for instance? I believe that's actually happened, that one of the volunteers actually did provide a reference for one of our guests in her application. So partly we can do that because, well, you get to know these folks, and after a while, you know them well enough to feel comfortable providing some sort of reference. And often they don't have that many other. For instance, very few of them have professional contacts who could provide that kind of reference. So,
Yeah, that's
so
a
we
great
are a
question.
resource.
Thanks, Benny, for that question. And I realize you see the questions too. There's one from Francis. Are these families with small children? Are there some families with small children?
We have tried to avoid bringing children in, only because children raise all kinds of other issues, safety in particular. We don't have an absolute prohibition, but I think our thinking was, there are other resources if you have children in the county. But if someone came to us and they had no other alternatives, we would consider that.
Okay. Thank you.
I also think it's important that your listeners know that after a person has been in the program for a while, we do another interview. And that interview is the "how is it going" interview. What are you doing about food? Are you connected with, for example, STAKE, short-term emergency food assistance? Are you looking at some other issues? We have a list of resources, and we want to see whether people are following through, even those who have had unfortunate experiences with social service agencies. It's time to try those again. And so when we're doing that other interview, it's not a yes, you can stay, no, you can't stay interview. It's a tell us what is happening, what is going well, where you need additional help. And I think that's a really important aspect of letting people know that we see them, we care about them. We want them to do well. With respect to the police, and this is full admission, I would like for Heart of Davis to have a time when we spend time with the police staff talking about what it is to be a compassionate police force. And there are compassionate individuals within the police force. But some people go into that kind of a profession because it is powerful in one small arena. And so one of my goals for Heart of Davis is that we will be able to do some in-service training. We have a wonderful police chief. I and some others have spent hours talking with him. I think he is in support of that.
It's very compassionate.
And then the other little thing that I want to share that isn't a little thing at all is one of our goals as Heart of Davis is to have a brick and mortar building that will serve as a year-round emergency shelter with wraparound services.
Wonderful.
So this program we hope will continue, but we really want to also continue to push the city and others in the direction of finding land, which is the big stumbling block. NIMBYism is a big stumbling block. And getting that funding and building that building. So we're not stopping with our current program. It is one program within the range of a number of things that we see as needs. Now I'll be quiet a little bit.
Yay, powerful. I'm so delighted that you added that, because it so much sounds like I used to work for wraparound services in the state of Maine, and it definitely feels, it has the feeling of it, like you want continuity, it's not just the introduction interview to make sure they agree to the code of ethics and have some safe nights sleeping. It's you care, like you said, and you connect them to a broad array of services right now, not as a social service agency, as a group of volunteers committing your time and heart and soul, and relying on community, goodness, and that you have this vision for brick and mortar, that you see wraparound services it becoming more and more of a reality. And I love that you're asking for a meeting with the police department. That's a great idea. We used to work with the police department in Maine. Again, a lot of my experiences with wraparound, and also helping people who were fleeing from domestic violence. We did a lot of work with police department, attorneys, judges, doctors, to increase understanding and reduce judgmentalness, increase understanding of the variables and factors, so that more and more people became involved with the wraparound vision that you have.
Good.
Yeah, remember, IRWS history goes back to many of the local churches and synagogue got together and offered during wintertime, space for 25 to 40 people each night between around late November until March, to give people a place, out of the cold. The city is still doing that, but at a very limited scale, and we're very concerned this year that it's been cut back so much. There's going to be many people who won't really have a place to stay. But really, we know that there's at least a couple hundred people in Davis who are, sleeping out of doors, or don't have a place to stay. I mean, there's various levels and categories, but having whatever 8 beds when it's cold is just really not enough.
And IRWS interfaith rotation, is that right? Winter shelter.
Interfaith rotating winter shelter. Yeah. So since we couldn't run the winter shelter when COVID hit, we ended up changing our name to Heart of Davis. And it's because it seemed even after the pandemic was sort of resolved that it still wasn't going to be possible to restart the rotating shelter. There was just too much concern about, which we learned from the pandemic, having, let's say, 30 people together in a single space all night has its issues, which weren't so evident to us earlier, but now are. And so, many of the churches felt like they weren't going to be able to organize and host that. Maybe in a few years it'll become a possibility again, but right now we haven't been able to get people behind it. But really, this shouldn't be done by a bunch of volunteers. I mean, this is the sort of thing that city and county really should be taken care of, right? So
absolutely
looking for that.
So for people who want to, like a friend who I just mentioned, that I would have the opportunity to speak with you to, said, well, do they need blankets? Like, do like for people who want to donate something clean and nice and good shape and condition, is there a way for that to happen? And is it through the website, Heart of Davis website?
Yeah,
If
I
that's
think the best would be to call. There's a number there, which you may have to leave a message, but we'll get back to them if they have something they would like to donate other than money. Um, some we have organized to give the Parkers various things, some winter clothes, and it is a problem. I mean, they're sleeping in their car. It's cold now,
got to be cold.
and so they're all wearing multiple layers to try and stay warm. We discussed some way to heat the cars. It turns out that's really complicated and tricky. And so we have provided, in some cases, more winter coats and things, or blankets, etc. But yeah, I do most of my volunteer work in the morning, and I know they come in and their hands are red from the cold. It's not fun, but at least they're feeling a little safer than they would be parking somewhere else. So that's where we
Wow.
are.
Yeah. And the connection to you, the human connection with other humans, is so critical.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, thinking about this, sometimes it feels like, really, this is the best we can do.
mhm,
You sort of feel like, really, why can't we get these people some decent place to live?
mhm.
It's so frustrating.
It's extremely
But
frustrating.
this is sort of where we are, and this is we're providing something, and people, and they appreciate it. These people do thank us every day, and I'm glad we're there. But sometimes you feel like, gosh, can't we get these people a decent place to live? It's hard.
Mm,
And it can happen. There has to be the
yeah,
political will
absolutely.
and the civic will, and
Mhm,
then it can happen. And even with all of the federal cuts, there are funds, but the biggest stumbling block is getting the land.
mm,
And that, as I'm sure you are aware, has been resolved in several neighboring pueblos in several neighboring towns in various ways. And Davis needs to look squarely at how we can do this. I
oh,
know it can happen.
I love that. Davis needs to look squarely on how we can do this. If there's a political will and the civil will, we can find the land.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And more can be done. My gosh, we only have about a minute and a half left. Um, what you've already said is just beautiful and powerful, but do you have anything to add for closing thoughts?
Go ahead, Andy. Anything you want to say, or do you want me to speak?
No, I think I just said, I think we should. I When I started, I was volunteering in the evening, and I found it difficult to leave
Mm,
because here I'm going home to a nice warm house or a cool house in the summer, and
mhm,
leaving these folks behind in their car. I felt bad. I still feel
mhm,
like I wish we could do more. And to go back to Kary's point, I think that's really the concluding comment: is we really should, as a town, as a county, we really should have some way to help these folks, you know, have a decent place to live. So that's our long-term goal. And the safe parking is one step in that direction.
Beautiful. I can't thank you enough for what you do. I really appreciate your sharing where you're at, what you're getting done, what else can happen and needs to happen. Thank you both so much, Andy and Kary, and we'll have to have you back again to help reflect the progress.
When we come back to talk about progress, we may tell you about other sites that have been opened. So
Wonderful.
That is something that is possible. We want to keep each site very small, but that as we work through these months that are essentially our startup months, we're starting our 7th now. We will be looking at other sites as possibilities. So, yeah, it would be fun to come back.
Wonderful. And anybody who is listening or watching, check out heartofdavis.godaddysite.com. And again, thanks, Andy and Kary. I love your magnificent hearts. Thank you so much for what you're doing. And I also want to thank the listeners and viewers and people who sent in questions, and anyone else who can help build the civic and political will. And I want to thank Rebel, our engineer, our producer, Dean Piper, and be sure to tune in next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for It's Your Voice on Talk4TV or W4CY.com. And may we all have enriching conversations in diversity this week. Thank you again.